Sharon felt unhappy and angry, especially towards her husband, me, Frank Miller. It was easy to understand when we were driving home from a party hosted by Anne and Hank Vanderlink, a couple she knew. Sharon was sitting in her seat, as far away from me as possible, and frowning so that the milk could curdle. I couldn't help but wonder why she was so mad at me. To tell the truth, she had every right to be offended with me after I ruined her evening. I should be ashamed that I disgraced my wife, the mother of our 3 children. How did I manage to do this? Having pulled out the wrong key at a party hosted by the Miracle Workers, where my wife decided to take part in an eccentric event. I felt ashamed of my mistake. I wasn't interested in going to a party. It was the first time we were invited to one of their events, but my wife had heard about them and was able to get an invitation through a mutual friend. At the same time, she did not warn me that this party would have an unusual ending. Without warning, she forgot to say that all the wives would have to put the house keys in a bowl, which would then be mixed, and the husbands would choose the key without looking. Choosing a key at random from a bowl, I take the owner of the key to her bedroom, where we will spend the whole night indulging in carnal and amorous pleasures. When the party came to an end and I realized what was about to happen, I was overwhelmed by a wave of irritation. I've never been so furious with Sharon. Grabbing her hand, I forcibly led her into the kitchen. Could you imagine that the party would end like this? She was looking at me with a smug expression on her face. So you conveniently missed this important information? I shook my head. I knew you wouldn't agree if you had the right to vote. You're damn right I wouldn't agree. I always have a choice. Let's just leave, I suggested. But she refused, saying that it would be rude and would put her in an awkward position. It's just for one night, she added. Let's add spice to our marriage. I'm not interested in such experiences. Let's apologize and leave. Frank, we could use a little thrill. I crave thrills. Just for this night, I want to feel like a woman, not just a wife and mother. It's just one time and it won't happen again. Besides, I've already made a commitment by putting the key to our house in the bowl, so now there's no turning back. It's not too late to change your mind. Just look at me. Taking her hand, I led her back to the living room where a bowl of keys was waiting for her, which meant the beginning of the night's entertainment. But Sharon resisted and pulled away from me. Reluctantly, I let her go and went to the bowl, stating in a firm voice that I had not been informed about this aspect of the evening, and that I did not intend to share my wife with anyone. Rummaging in the bowl, I found the key to our house, which my wife left there, easily recognizable by the red plastic lid. Taking it, I turned to face the unexpectedly assembled party guests. I made it clear that I had not been informed of the nature of this event before my wife dragged me here. Adultery contradicts my beliefs, and marriage vows are of great importance to me. Despite the murmurs and disapproving glances directed in my direction, I remained steadfast in my position. When I met my wife's furious gaze, I remained of my opinion. Sharon, the decision is yours. You can either come with me and leave this madness behind, or you can stay and never come home. I'm leaving. All attention turned to my wife, her face flushed with embarrassment. She challenged me and then apologized for her rude behavior. She expressed a desire to stay, but in the end decided it was better to leave, given the circumstances. She followed me to the car, reluctantly and with anger written all over her face. "You are an insufferable, selfish idiot!" she screamed at me. "How could you embarrass me like that in front of everyone? We will never be invited there again." Embarrass you, Sharon? What about the fact that you embarrassed me by not including sleeping with another man in your plan today? Well, you could bring one of the other wives so that we can both have a good time. I was puzzled by the words that came out of Sharon's mouth. I don't want another woman, Sharon. I leave this intimate activity only for my wife, I told her, feeling disappointed after 10 years of marriage when I found out that she wanted to invite another man into her bed. It's only going to be one time, Frank, Sharon tried to reassure me. Of all the countless nights we've spent together and will spend more, This will be just one night with someone else. I don't think I'm asking too much, especially considering that I've been a faithful wife for the last 10 years. Sharon, this request is very significant. It's hard to believe what you're asking for, but I can tell that it means a lot to you. Yes, Frank, it really is. I've been waiting for this for weeks. A night when I can just be myself, not a wife or mother, and have an adventure, to feel adored and spend a few hours of passion with another man. So this will be the only time you will have intimacy with someone other than your husband? Yes, I suppose so. I stopped the car abruptly, turned around in the middle of the street, and raced back to the Vanderlink house, tires screeching. Sharon screamed when I made a playful sound. "What are you up to, Frank?" "What is it exactly?" "What is it?" she asked. "If one night of intimacy with another man is so important to you, Sharon, then go ahead," I replied. When I got to their house, I noticed that all the other cars were still parked there. "It looks like you still have a chance to join in the fun, so go ahead. Come out and have a good evening. Go to an exciting meeting with a stranger. I hope you find someone who can meet your needs in a way that I can't. Frank, this is just an experiment, a new experience. Your qualities are impeccable and you always treat me well. But we both have to take part in this. Each of us should spend the night with a new partner. I've made it clear that I can't participate in this, Sharon. I have always been faithful to you and will not change until our marriage is over." What does this mean? It means, Sharon, that it's time to make a decision. If you decide to leave, then go to your adulterous friends. Even if you don't have a husband with you, they will still be happy to accept you. Sharon hesitated, her hand on the doorknob, considering her next move. In the end, she asked, "Frank, pick me up in the morning as soon as I find out which man's house I'm staying at." Sharon softened her tone when making this request, hoping for my understanding and support in this difficult situation. "It will mean a lot to me." "No way in the world, but I'm sure your new partner will be happy to give you a ride after spending the night with you." "I hate to hear you say that, Frank. He will not be my partner, just a person with whom I will enter into an intimate relationship to try something new. It's just for one night. I love you, Frank. You're the only man I've ever loved and will love." "Do you really believe that? It's hard to imagine that you can love me and have such intentions. To clarify the situation, you're saying that you're looking for someone new for casual intimacy, right? As a result, another man will be ready to impregnate you." "Frank, this is disrespectful. You know I'm on birth control, so that's not going to happen. Having an affair with someone new is exciting, but it won't lead to pregnancy. Have you ever thought about how exciting it is to study a new person's face while being intimate with them? Fresh impressions, unfamiliar sensations. Is everything really so new and exciting? Wait and see, our intimacy will get even better from now on. Enjoy the way the new guy owns you and the new sensations he gives you, Sharon. I believe you know what you're doing. It's just one night, Frank. Nothing special. Even a moment would be too much. We have a whole future ahead of us. If you decide to leave, we will never have a future together, Sharon. I'm begging you to come to your senses for the last time." "Frank, you're making a big deal out of a molehill. I'm going to stand my ground. I'm not going to let you ruin my evening. I deserve to spend time with someone else, and you can't stop me from doing that. I'm going to go all the way, and you're going to have to put up with it. Do you hear me? Tomorrow morning, I will devote myself completely to you again and erase all memories of tonight. Tomorrow morning you will become a part of the past. I won't want you anymore once you betray me by giving another man what I've always considered mine. That's stupid of you. I belong only to you, and you will understand that. I'll take care of it. Sharon, listen to me. I'm being completely serious. If you get out of the car and come back to this house, our relationship will be over. One careless night will cost you your marriage and family. No, Frank, that's not going to happen. I won't let that happen. We are married, and we will always be married. We are destined to be together. I love you deeply, and I know that you feel the same way about me. We will overcome any difficulties that stand in our way, I promise. I will do everything to make everything good between us. You're breaking my heart, Sharon. Please don't be a child. Instead, think of our situation as an exciting journey that we are going on together. Exciting for you is a tragic end for us. You don't understand, Frank. In the morning I will convince you otherwise, and you know perfectly well how I will do it. Do you really think that I would want to touch your dirty body after you spent the night with someone else? You're going to touch me, but how else? I'll take care of it. I didn't realize how stupid you were. Get out! My words hit her hard. She opened the car door and started to get out. See you in the morning, Frank, she said. I shook my head sadly and sighed. No, Sharon, I won't see you. After she slammed the door, I immediately stepped on the gas pedal, making the tires squeal loudly as I drove half a block. When I looked in the rearview mirror, I saw that she was standing on the side of the road and looked completely stunned, with her mouth open in shock. When I turned the corner, she was no longer in sight. I was hoping that she would contact me immediately, admit her mistake, and ask me to come back for her. Unfortunately, there was no such call. I was devastated and consumed by a wave of emotions. Tears cascaded down my face, making it difficult to see clearly. My wife preferred a night of intimacy with a stranger to 10 years of our marriage. It was clear from her actions that she believed that I would just forget about her betrayal. She probably assumed that I would get upset and ignore her for a while, and then she could use her seductive charms to lure me back to bed, and everything would be forgiven. But she was wrong. My father once told me that if a woman thinks about having sexual intercourse with another man, then mentally she has already committed adultery. If a married woman is seriously thinking about this, she has already broken her vows. It is quite natural to be attracted to someone and be interested in their intimate abilities, but actively planning treason is betrayal. This realization ended my marriage, and it's time to move on. Our 3 children suffer the most in this situation: 9-year-old Jocelyn, 8-year-old Rebecca Ann, and 4-year-old Frank Jr. How will I live without them every day of my life? But I can't let Sharon's actions go unpunished. The children were at my mother's house for the weekend, and I had time to think about my next steps. I drove aimlessly for about 30 minutes, hoping that Sharon would call and ask me to pick her up. It soon became clear that she had made a decision. In the end, I stayed with my original plan and went home. When I got to my house, the phone rang. I was hoping she was calling for me to pick her up, but the caller ID showed that it wasn't Sharon. Despite this, I answered the call. I heard the sounds of music and laughter from the party in the background, and a man's voice spoke to me. Hello, Frank. This is Rick Wilson from the party you left early. Your lovely wife gave me your phone number. She thinks I can convince you to come back. She's an amazing woman and seems excited about the plans for tonight. She's always talking about how lucky you are. All the guys here hope to be the ones she chooses. She constantly teases that someone is going to have an unforgettable night, and she wants you to experience it too. The atmosphere here is getting quite tense. Everyone strives to find their night companion. You still have the option to go back and choose a key. Several attractive women are ready to give you an exciting evening. Rick Wilson, you wife-manipulating bastard, may you burn in hell. As for the rest of your party guests, including my unfaithful wife, may you all suffer a terrible fate. I blacked out and headed into the house. In 20 minutes, I packed 2 suitcases with clothes that would last for a week or 2. I also packed a laptop and a shaving kit, after which I loaded everything into the car. Rummaging through several drawers, I found our marriage certificate and tore it into 4 parts. Then I took a hammer and hit the wedding ring several times until it was flat. I put the certificate and the ring on Sharon's pillow, locked the front door, and drove off into the night. I decided to look for a motel a couple of miles out of town, but before that I returned to the Vanderlink's house for the last time. Several cars had already left the party, and several people were standing outside talking. Sharon was nowhere to be seen, and I assumed that she had either left with her new partner or was currently staying with Mr. Vanderlink. The motel I eventually found was in a nearby town, and although it seemed small from the outside, it was quite comfortable to spend the night in. I found a parking lot in the backyard where my car was hidden from prying eyes. After locking it, I bought a 6-pack of Newcastle at a nearby store and lay down to watch TV. The first 2 glasses helped me relax, and when I took out the third, the phone rang. It was Sharon, but I put the phone on voicemail because I was sure she wasn't calling for me to pick her up. Rick Wilson relayed the message you shared with him. How many times do I have to repeat that it's just for one night? The fact that I allowed one new man to have sexual intercourse with me several times does not make me immoral. I promise to fix the situation, even if it hurts a little, but in a way that will exceed your expectations when I return tomorrow. I understand that you may not care, but I wanted to mention that the key to our house was replaced after you took it out of the bowl. The man who pulled it out is named Glenn. He seems kind and assured me that he would not put pressure on me. I don't like him. He is married and has children, just like us. Since you're at home, I'll go to him. His wife and her boyfriend will also stay here for the night, but in another part of the house, far enough away from us not to hear each other when everything gets intimate and we start making noise. You know how I can make noise when you touch me? She laughed like a schoolgirl. I understand that you may be uncomfortable with this situation, but I want to assure you that I will not let him go any further than you went with me. I suggested to Glenn that everything should be simple and familiar. Glenn agreed, especially considering that this is my first experience of intimate life with someone else. He assured me that he would take me home as soon as we were done tomorrow. I will definitely take a shower and freshen up before returning to be clean and ready for you. I couldn't believe what I had just heard. Those words pierced me like a knife. I never thought that my wife could be so stupid and reckless. Sharon has always been a bit careless, but I never thought it would lead to such a tragic outcome. Now her stupidity cost her everything. Her life with her husband and perhaps her life with her children. She was shocked that I refused to take her back after she allowed another man to be with her and flaunted it in front of me. I'm sure everyone at the party was having fun at my expense. I was full of anger, pain, and embarrassment, but my wife didn't show any concern. I knew I should have ignored her message, but I couldn't help myself. I dialed her number and she answered on the 3rd ring. Hi, honey. Glenn and I are in bed getting comfortable. I can't talk for long. Sharon, please be quiet. This may be the last time you'll hear from me. You don't realize the consequences of your actions yet, but you will soon. Enjoy your time with Glenn because the price will be more than you expect. Remember, Sharon, as soon as you sleep with Glenn, our marriage is over. I never thought I would feel like this, but my hatred for you now surpasses all the love I once felt. I'm looking forward to the moment when I can get rid of you completely. My lawyer will contact you next week, I stated before ending the conversation. Just 30 seconds later, my phone rang again. It was her. I ignored the call and sent it to voicemail. Why are you treating me like this? How can you say such things to me? I'm your wife. Can't you just let me stay the night? Glenn and I just started having a good time, and now you're ruining everything. I don't know if I'll be able to fully enjoy talking to him now. I'm not going to get divorced. I'll be back home in the morning, and then we can discuss everything. I'd come back now, but I promised Glenn I'd be with him tonight. Please try to understand, I have to do this. He has my key, and I promised him that he could stay with me. He wants to do it now, even now, when I'm talking to you. I have to go. Glenn is waiting. I love you, Frank. My love for you will always remain. He's already here. Oh God, please understand me. I heard her say softly, Make love to me, Glenn. This is my night. See you in the morning, dear. I couldn't resist calling her back, but the phone rang several times before going to voicemail. It was clear that she was already on it, so I left a message. After listening to the voicemail, it becomes clear that Glenn has already captivated you and you are enjoying every moment. You'll spend the night looking into his eyes, experiencing new feelings that you didn't even know you had. Sharon, you broke my heart, and I don't think I'll ever be able to forgive you. It's impressive that you kept your promise to Glenn, the man you just met, but couldn't keep the vows of our 10-year marriage. It feels like I don't know you anymore. You won't see me in the morning. You may never see me again, but be prepared for the fact that next week you will receive divorce papers, as well as charges of adultery. From now on, you are free to enter into an intimate relationship with any man you wish, whenever you want. But know that you have lost me forever, and I intend to keep that promise. Sharon hasn't called back. I know how she gets turned on during intimacy classes. She finds herself in another realm where nothing exists but her and her partner. Whether she received my last message or not doesn't matter right now. The damage has already been done, and our marriage cannot be repaired now. I cannot forgive her for the disrespect, humiliation, and betrayal she expressed to me. As I finished the last bag, I didn't want to imagine my wife lying naked in Glenn's bed all night. A woman who, until tonight, belonged exclusively to me. Sharon was especially loud during our intimate moments, and I couldn't help but worry that she would be calling Glenn instead of me. When alcohol began to cloud my mind, I dozed off and tears flowed down my cheeks. When I woke up a few hours later, the harsh truth about my wife's infidelity hit me like a blow. I knew I had to come up with a strategy to protect my children, get rid of Sharon, and make sure everyone at the party suffered as much as I did. While living in the picturesque antebellum neighborhood of Biloxi, Mississippi on the Persian Gulf Coast, I learned that adultery is a good reason for divorce in this state. Given the possibility of not paying child support and potentially getting custody of the children, I realized that I needed to find a first-class lawyer. After quickly packing my things, I called my mom at 7:30 a.m. to inform her about the situation. She was as surprised by Sharon's action as I was. She agreed to leave our children for the weekend and not tell them anything. I assured her that I would pick them up as soon as I had a plan of action. I knew that Sharon would most likely get custody, at least temporarily. It hurt me to admit it, but until last night she was a devoted mother to her children and a loving wife to me. After talking to my mom on the phone, I headed to the nearest diner to have breakfast. I hadn't even parked and got out of the car when the phone rang. Sharon was on the line. I hesitated for a moment, debating whether to pick up the phone or leave it on voicemail. In the end, I decided to ignore the call. Surprisingly, Sharon didn't leave a voice message. Instead, she immediately called back. When I didn't answer the second time, she kept calling over and over until she finally left a message on the 5th try. Her voice was trembling and filled with tears. "Damn it, Frank! Answer the damn phone! Talk to me, damn you! What do you mean I might never see you again? And what is this nonsense about divorce? Papers? You can't just leave me, Frank. We have 3 small children who depend on both of us. Why did you tear up our marriage certificate and throw away our wedding ring? I gave you this ring on our wedding day and you promised to always wear it. It symbolizes our eternal love for each other. I knew you'd be upset, but I never thought you'd do something like that. You are very dear to me, Frank. The night I spent with Glenn was wonderful and made me feel young again. But even though we had fun, I only love you. I want to make amends to you and erase all hidden resentments. Please come home so I can show you how much I love you. Come back to me, Frank." She couldn't hold back her tears, trying to speak out. "Frank, why can't you understand that I needed a night with someone else? I wanted to feel wanted by another man, to experience something new and exciting. It was nice to know that someone else finds me attractive and can't wait to be with me. You don't understand how important it is for a woman my age to feel wanted and in demand. Frank, please try to understand that it was just a physical encounter. It didn't mean anything else. Please, Frank, let's talk about this. I love you. You and our children mean everything to me." Her voice trembled as she spoke. "It was just a physical activity, Frank. We've only had intimate relationships a few times. That's all there was, Frank." She continued to cry, and then the message abruptly ended. Standing at the entrance to the diner, I was stunned by what I had just heard. Had she harbored these thoughts throughout our marriage, and only after many years did they finally surface. Sharon remains as beautiful as ever. At 5 feet 5 inches tall and weighing 130 pounds, she has shoulder-length dark brown hair, light blue eyes, and a stunning figure. Her breasts are just the right size, and although her hips have expanded a little after the birth of 3 children, she still attracts the attention of others wherever she goes. I don't understand why she's talking about how she needs to feel wanted by another man. I've always shown her how much I love and desire her. I give her flowers, take her on dates regularly, buy her underwear, and tell her every day how beautiful she is and how much I love her. Our intimate life was wonderful. We made love at least 3 times a week, and I always made sure that it reached its peak. I thought everything was perfect until last night. What was I missing? Despite the loss of appetite, I decided to go to the diner. Finding an empty table, I ordered scrambled eggs, toast, and black coffee. I managed to eat only a small portion of breakfast, but in the end, I drank 6 cups of coffee. At that moment, I had never felt so lost, empty, and defeated. I'd heard others say they didn't want to live like this anymore, and now I understood that feeling. My children are the reason I had to keep living. Despite the hell Sharon had created, I knew I had to stand up and create a better future for them. This thought spurred my resolve. All that remained was to figure out how to do it. Sharon kept calling me on the phone that day, but I ignored her calls and sent them to voicemail. She begged me for understanding, but she never apologized for her actions. She never admitted that she had made a mistake, but only demanded that I support and understand her need for that one night. All they did was have an intimate relationship, 3 times during the night and once more in the morning. Now it's clear that it was just a one-night stand, which is easy to discard and move on. She mentioned that she was worried that I might have overheard her conversation with Glenn and wasn't sure if her phone was properly muted. In a way, I have to admire her ability to hurt me so deeply with her words. I was shocked by her stupidity. But there is also a positive point. I have collected enough audio evidence of her infidelity to use it in court. Although I wasn't sure that this evidence would be enough, it was undeniably convincing and left no room for doubt. I plan to consult with an experienced lawyer tomorrow to gather all the necessary information. While visiting her mother's children, she informed me that Sharon had contacted her, asking about the children and my whereabouts. Mom told her that I was suffering because of her actions and did not want to communicate with her. Sharon started crying, explaining that I didn't understand the situation. Mom noticed that no one can truly understand the pain of a spouse who cheated on him by having an affair. Sharon asked if she needed to pick up the kids, but my mom suggested that they stay with her for a few more days until things settled down. The kids were happy to see me, but they were wondering where their mom was. I informed them that their mom is busy with an important project and they will stay with Grandma for a few more days. We spent time together playing and having dinner, after which I said goodbye to them with hugs and kisses and returned to my motel. The next day was going to be spent in a hurry, and before finishing the work, it was necessary to make one last stop. Well, technically just drive past. As I drove past my house, tears welled up in my eyes again. Tears streamed down my face as I mourned what I had lost, realizing that it was gone forever. As I drove up to the entrance, I noticed that not a single unfamiliar car was parked on the street. The thought flashed through my head that maybe the man's car was hidden in the garage. But the only light in the house came from the kitchen downstairs, which indicated that Sharon was alone today. At that moment, I realized that I was still not indifferent to her, although I did not intend to resume our relationship. Although she took precautions, the betrayal still hurt me deeply. I resisted the urge to spy on her with all my might, but eventually gave up. Parking a block away from the house, I quietly made my way to the side where I could look through the kitchen window. She was sitting at the table with an empty bottle of Grey Goose. Her tousled hair and smudged mascara hinted at her emotional state. Dressed in a bathrobe, she was lying on the table facing me, her eyes closed in peaceful slumber. It was obvious that she was crying, surrounded, it seems, by a box of napkins. I felt sorry for her for a while, but then I remembered the pain she had caused me and our children. Anger flared up in me, but instead of confronting her, I got back in the car and drove away. I felt a sense of satisfaction that she might have finally realized the consequences of her actions. If she needs comfort, she can turn to her lover Glenn. Monday arrived earlier than expected and brought with it a long list of things to do. I started my day at the diner, where I happily ate scrambled eggs, toast, and drank black coffee, for once finishing my lunch. I definitely called my mom and talked to each of my children, assuring them of my love and promising that I would see them soon. Then I contacted my assistant in the office, informing her that I would be dealing with personal matters in the next couple of days. I asked her to contact me by phone or text message if something urgent needed my attention. She asked if anything had happened, and I replied in the affirmative, promising to tell her about it later. In my last year at Ole Miss, I shared an apartment with two of my close friends, Douglas Prater and Maxwell McCrae. Our bond was strong, and although we only saw each other occasionally, we stayed in touch all these years. I graduated from university with a degree in computer science, Doug with a degree in business administration, and Max pursued a career in law. First, I called Doug and asked him and Max to have a drink with me around 5. I explained that I needed their opinion on an important issue, and Doug agreed to contact Max and meet me at the Lava Bar on the beach. I arrived earlier, Max a little after 5, and Doug 10 minutes after that. We exchanged greetings, found a table on the patio, ordered a beer, and made a toast. "What's on your mind, Frank?" asked Doug. "Your call seemed urgent to me." "Sharon betrayed me and flaunted it," I confessed, laying it all out. "It's hard," Doug said. "I can't believe she could do something like that," Max chimed in. "I thought so too, but she did it without guilt or regret and thinks I'm overreacting. Can you believe that?" Max asked, "What are you planning now?" "I want to get a divorce and make Glenn and the rest of the party pay for what they did," I replied. "The most important thing is to get custody of your children." Max said, "It may not be easy, unless your ex-wife shows irresponsible behavior. To bring strange men into the house and behave inappropriately in the presence of children, then there will be a basis for obtaining custody. If she is a good mother, then most likely custody will be given to her, and you will have to pay alimony. I am ready to accept the situation just to be able to spend time with the children regularly." "This is an achievable goal," Max said. "The courts encourage the active participation of both parents in the upbringing of children, assuming that they are both responsible caregivers." But when it came to finances, Doug raised the issue. "Sharon stays at home with the kids, and I assume you have a solid 6-figure income," he said. "How much money do you have in your bank accounts, both checking and savings accounts? Do you have investments or an individual retirement account?" "I have all of the above. According to my estimates, it's about 700,000 to 800,000, maybe a little more." The court will most likely divide the property equally, awarding Sharon a house and custody. But if you can provide proof of her infidelity, and that seems like a convincing argument, you can avoid paying alimony. You need a highly qualified divorce lawyer. I work with one of the best family law attorneys in Mississippi, Maddie Simmons. Do you want me to schedule a consultation with her?" "Of course, the sooner the better." Doug said he would work to protect my money, and I promised to send him all the necessary information. Raising a toast and saying goodbye, I felt such relief as I had not felt for a long time. As I drove back to the motel, all the tasks I needed to solve flashed through my mind. At that moment, the phone rang, and Sharon was on the line. I thought for a moment before answering. I knew that at some point I would have to talk to her, so I stopped the car and picked up the phone. "What do you need, Sharon?" She didn't waste any time and got straight to the point. "What do you think I want, Frank? I want my husband to come home, where he belongs." There were tears in her voice. "I'm sorry, but because of your affair with Glenn, I can't go back," I replied bluntly. She burst into tears. "Frank, please don't say that. One night away from you after 10 years of marriage should not be a reason for divorce. In Mississippi, adultery is considered grounds for divorce, and what you did was treason. It doesn't matter if it was just an affair with someone new, it's still considered cheating when a married woman gets involved with someone else. I warned you that if you engage in intimacy with another man, it will be the end of our relationship. Oh my God, Frank, please don't do this to me. You brought this on yourself, Sharon. What happened to you? Do you use hallucinogenic drugs? Do you have a mental disorder? Or are you just stupid? It seems that you were so fixated on the idea of being with another man that you neglected our children, my feelings and desires. You just had to get through it. Now you're facing the consequences. I thought we were happy with each other, living in a beautiful house with 3 wonderful children. Our sex life was fantastic, but you ruined it by sleeping with a stranger and flaunting it. Frank, we've always been happy. I was just interested in spending another night with someone from our long relationship. Just try something new without causing harm. Without causing harm, you don't seem to see the damage you've done. Your selfish actions destroyed our family overnight. Our lives have been shattered into countless pieces that cannot be restored. Sharon, you broke my heart without showing the slightest remorse. Remember me as your devoted husband, who has loved you since the day we met. I worked tirelessly to provide you and our children with the life you wanted, but you betrayed me by finding solace in the arms of a stranger. You gave him that part of yourself that, as you promised 10 years ago, would belong only to me. You made this vow in front of God, our families, and all our friends. And last night you betrayed me by ignoring my pleas to change my mind. Basically, you told me to leave and did whatever you wanted, implying that my feelings didn't matter at all. Frank, I didn't want it to turn out like this. I didn't understand how it would affect you. I just wanted to shake myself up and do something different. I want you to know that I love you, and it wasn't about you. I needed something for myself. That's why you're here. By cheating on me last night with Glenn, I cut you out of the picture. You didn't think about how it would affect me and our children. I thought I deserved a special night just for myself. Fortunately for you, Your Royal Highness, you have achieved what you wanted at the cost of our marriage and perhaps your reputation among your loved ones. Although forgiveness may come in the future, the memory of your actions will remain forever. I intend to share the truth with everyone, just as you belittled my feelings when I found out about your infidelity. Let's see how you deal with the consequences of your actions becoming public. Oh, Frank, please, I beg you, change your mind. If my parents find out, it will devastate them. I'm sorry, Sharon, but you should have thought about the consequences before you acted. You started this mess yourself, and now you have to put up with it. You seem to think that your actions are insignificant, like breaking traffic rules or not returning a book from the library. But you've traded a 10-year marriage with a devoted man for fleeting moments of pleasure with a stranger who craves only momentary satisfaction. Sharon, don't you feel guilty that Glenn had sex with you 4 times and it led to the collapse of our family? I didn't have to sacrifice anything, Frank. You should have loved me enough to support me and let me make my own choices. No sane person would condone his wife having an affair just because she wanted to experiment. You should have realized that. What were you thinking, Sharon? What motivated you to do this? I didn't think you'd be so upset about this. I'm serious, Frank. What's wrong with letting another man have physical intimacy with me multiple times? My actions with Glenn last night do not diminish my love for you. I've heard about couples meeting at Vanderlink's, and it intrigued me. Why shouldn't a married couple share an intimate evening with a stranger, a kind and reliable person? Engaging in intimacy with someone new can bring new emotions and sensations. I made the decision that I wanted to explore an intimate relationship with another man. It wasn't a reflection of my feelings for you, Frank. I just wanted to meet someone else again, intending to come back to you and be faithful. But it turns out that you don't appreciate my wishes. Despite my repeated requests to change your mind, you just smiled and waved away my concerns. You have destroyed our bonds that we have shared for more than 10 years, depriving us of the intimacy that we had before. Maybe the promises we made to each other didn't mean that much to you, but they meant everything to me. Our physical relationship has brought into our lives 3 wonderful children who love us both very much. We were a devoted family dedicated only to each other. But now, you've given that connection to another man without thinking about the consequences. Was it really worth it? Was the momentary pleasure worth sacrificing our connection and the well-being of our children? You insist that it was just one night, and that I should just move on and forget about it. But for me, it was a complete betrayal of our family, of your promises to be faithful and respect me. You chose to be with another man, and although you may think that you succeeded, in fact, you just put everything we once treasured out of your mind. Even though I still have feelings for you, I will never be able to be a part of your life again. Frank, why are you so stubborn? Can't you see that what happened was necessary for me? I've always belonged to you. But it's different now, Sharon. You're not just mine anymore. I begged you not to do this, and now I can't forgive you for betraying me. This wound will never heal. I'm going to see a lawyer tomorrow. As a result, I plan to file for divorce, stating adultery as the basis. In the divorce proceedings, I will tell you the name of your lover, Glenn, as well as all the participants in the gathering whom I can identify. Think about what will happen when your unfaithful friends find out that you played a role in the breakup of their group and potentially tarnished their reputation. Sharon, go to hell and take all your adulterous drinking buddies with you. As soon as I entered the office of Maddie Simmons's lawyer, I realized that I had found the perfect lawyer to help me deal with the chaos in my life. Maddie didn't waste time on small talk, but immediately delved into the details of my divorce application. She asked me directly and bluntly about the reasons why I want to get divorced and what results I hope to achieve. I explained that I was ready to share our property equally with my future ex-wife Sharon, and that I was considering offering her our house in exchange for a reduction in monetary compensation. I understood that it would not be easy to achieve full custody of the children, but I still wanted to get unlimited visitation rights without having to pay alimony. I presented all the audio recordings I have on which Sharon admits to having an affair with Glenn, proving that her infidelity is beyond doubt. Miss Simmons shook her head in disbelief, not understanding how Sharon could be so careless as to admit her actions in a voicemail message that could be used against her in court. You may need a voice recognition expert to make sure it's really your wife's voice, she said, but if we find a fair judge, the record should be accepted in court. We spent the remaining hour working out a strategy against Glenn and the other members of the wife swap party. She expressed skepticism about our ability to recover monetary compensation from them. I suggested that we could expose their petty dealings and put them in a position where they would regret their behavior. I informed her that this was enough for me. I handed over the deposit and asked that Sharon be served quickly. She assured me that it wouldn't be long and promised to let me know in advance. On Tuesday afternoon, I picked up my children from their mother and brought them to Sharon's house. After opening the door, she warmly hugged and kissed each of them, and then turned to me. I took a step away from her, and she started crying and begging me to stay. I explained that I couldn't, but suggested that it would be good for the children if they returned home to her. I promised to pick them up on Friday so they could spend the weekend with me. Sharon seemed worried, and I sympathized with her, but I couldn't ignore the fact that she had provoked this situation herself. The problems she faced were no more difficult than the ones I had to go through because of her. On Wednesday, I returned to work knowing that I could not neglect my duties. I desperately needed a job, not only for financial support, but also as a way to distract myself. The pain and self-pity of Sharon's betrayal consumed me, and I realized that I couldn't continue down this path without going crazy, especially for the sake of my children. On Thursday, I met with Doug and Max to have dinner at the Oyster House, taste hand-caught oysters and martinis. While we were having dinner and drinking, I told them about my children and the current divorce process. Doug and I discussed possible ways to hide some of my funds, and I let him act. Although the amount was small, it could bring some benefits in the future. After coming to an agreement, we came up with a fairly simple plan for how to cause trouble at the wife swap club without exposing ourselves to potential defamation charges. Max had a close acquaintance who worked as a journalist for the Biloxi Sun-Herald newspaper. He was confident that by knowing the location of the Vanderlink house and the approximate time of the wife swap group meetings, he would be able to reveal the identities of some of the participants. His plan was to write an editorial in which he would expose the Biloxi wife-swapping scene as bigger than thought. By discreetly posting photos of couples and hinting at the involvement of some firms without naming them directly, he hoped to cause enough controversy among the religious community to create problems for the group as a whole. I provided Max with the information I had, and he assured me that he would start his investigation with that. After exchanging joyful parting words, we parted, promising to meet again soon. The weekend spent with my children was truly amazing. We enjoyed buying fashionable outfits, watching movies at Disney's Grand 18 in D'Iberville, having fun on the beach playing frisbee and swimming. My children held the most important place in my heart, and I made a solemn vow to always be with them. The following Monday, Max called me. One of his friends from the newspaper approved the concept of the plot and was currently photographing couples entering Vanderlinks and new couples leaving it together. Although the faces in the pictures will be blurred, it is unlikely that observant residents of the city will not be able to connect the dots. If everything falls into place, the scandal will undoubtedly hit the headlines by the end of the week. I crossed my fingers. She swore that she would do everything possible to make me forget about her actions, but she never apologized or admitted that she was wrong. On Wednesday, my lawyer informed me that Sharon would be served on Friday morning, and shortly after that, Doug told me that he had managed to hide some of my money by putting it in the names of my children. Max contacted me, happily informing me that his journalist friend had obtained information about the upcoming meeting of this company exchanging wives in Vanderlinks on Friday evening. He intended to watch the event from an inconspicuous van on the opposite side of the street, photographing everyone present. He also expressed interest in interviewing me again about the details of the party. If everything goes well, the article will be published in the newspaper next week. This news lifted my spirits, brought me a sense of relief and anticipation after a long break. It was Friday, and I was expecting a call from Sharon when she received the divorce papers. As expected, my lawyer called me at 2:30 p.m. to confirm that she had been handed the documents. Shortly after that, Sharon called me herself. I chuckled to myself, curious about what she wanted. Although I was tempted to send a call to voicemail, I decided to answer it. "Hi, Sharon. How are you?" I greeted her. "What the hell have you done, Frank?" Her tone was anything but friendly. "I have started divorce proceedings with you, Sharon, as I said before. You filed an infidelity complaint against me when I spent one night with another man. Frank, one night with another doesn't count as cheating." She was outraged. "I disagree with you on this issue, Sharon. In Mississippi, spending the night with someone other than a spouse is considered adultery." She burst into tears and asked, "Why are you so angry with me, Frank? I still love you. Glenn and I have only had a few intimate relationships. It wasn't an affair." "I'm really sorry, Sharon. In my stupidity, I thought that infidelity to my husband was considered treason. Is that what you wanted me to say? It's time to face the truth, Sharon. Our relationship is over. I tried to warn you and begged you not to do it, but you did it anyway. Now you have to face the consequences. I have a feeling that you may have new problems in the future. Goodbye, Sharon. I hope you will find your happiness." That was the end of the conversation. The main problem was my lingering love for Sharon. It seemed like this feeling would always exist, but I couldn't bring myself to trust her again. I couldn't keep being married to a woman who was cheating on me. I knew I had to avoid Vanderlink's Friday night party, but I couldn't resist the temptation to at least drive past and see what was going on there. I also wanted to see if Sharon's car was there, although I had a feeling she wouldn't be coming to the party this time. Her car was nowhere to be found. Maybe she left with someone else? I knew that only married couples were allowed to visit this place, but they usually made an exception for her. Who's to say they won't do it again? I noticed a van parked across the street from the house and assumed the reporter was nearby. I hoped that he would be able to get to the truth. The next day, Max's friend and reporter contacted me for information, which I did not hesitate to provide. He informed me that he had taken more than 100 photos and identified more than a dozen couples who were considered elite residents of the city. Interestingly, these same couples were not seen leaving the house 2 hours later. Max showed him a picture of my wife to help identify her, and he confirmed that she was not among those seen entering or leaving the Vanderlink house. He asked me to tell him about my observations and impressions of staying in the house during the key festival. I tried my best to explain how the keys are placed in a large bowl. Although I did not witness the moment when men randomly selected a key and left with the woman who owned it, I still understood the concept from my wife's explanations and from how another couple talked about their past parties. When we were about to say goodbye, he asked if it was worth saying that he knew firsthand about at least one marriage destroyed by parties and about the suffering of children due to their parents' divorce. I advised him to wait until the names were announced. The article was published in the Sunday edition of the newspaper and caused quite a stir. Not only did it occupy the front page with a blurry photo of the couple, but it also contained many additional photos on 4 other pages. Despite attempts to hide their identity, many of the participants could easily be recognized by the expensive cars and luxurious clothes they were wearing. It was obvious that these people belonged to the elite of Biloxi. By Monday, the whole city was buzzing about scandalous events and extravagant parties. Several priests have even given interviews on radio and television, condemning the evil that has infiltrated their Christian community. The Pearl of the South has faced a negative reaction from the public and civic leaders to its moral decline. Despite lawsuits and counterclaims, the situation could not be resolved. Large companies have lost clients, and several couples have ended up in divorce court. Personally, I found the situation funny, considering it a worthy punishment for the pain I went through after losing my wife and family. Even if some people found out that I had been cheated on, I remained indifferent. I was happy to have my revenge, and that was the main thing for me. For several months, Sharon persistently tried to reconcile with me, but I remained firm in my decision to divorce. In the end, the divorce was finalized, and I got joint custody of our children. Now we have separate custody. The children are with me during the week, and Sharon is on weekends. It's not ideal, but we're doing it. Since there were no disagreements during our divorce, I decided not to save Sharon from embarrassment and put her audio recordings in the public domain. Some of the couples who participated in the key parties eventually divorced and left the city. Sharon and I went our separate ways. She was disgraced. I gave an interview to a journalist about the situation that happened to Sharon, and her face appeared on the pages of the newspaper as a woman devoid of moral principles. I hope this was a lesson for her. Although she may not understand why I was so worried about her behavior, I'm moving on and wishing her future husband good luck. I've had some wonderful women, but I didn't see a future with any of them. Some even wanted to move in with me, but I still doubt that I will give a woman a key to my apartment. Tom worked hard on new test data, despite the fact that it was tedious and time-consuming. But he knew that this was the most important foundation for all the work he and his team had done on the test car over the past month. Reluctantly, he continued to collect and group information for analysis. A text notification came to his phone, but he ignored it, too focused on his task. It was only when there was a break in working on the data that he finally looked up from the monitor and noticed a message on his phone. He picked up the phone and looked at the notification. The number was not saved in his contacts, although the area code was local. Puzzled, he hesitated for a moment, wondering if he should just delete the message as spam. But curiosity got the better of him, and he decided to open the message, thinking it might be someone from the team whose number he hadn't saved yet. When he clicked on the text, a message appeared on the screen. His initial confusion turned to shock when he realized that he had been sent an overtly intimate image. After reading the message, he said, "You still have time. Bradley is 18. After reading the message again, he paused and grinned. Rarely does anyone make a mistake with the number and receives a message about their intimate life. As he was about to delete the message, he took another look at the photo, and his heart began to pound. He did not immediately notice that she had a tiny tattoo on her left leg, like his wife, with whom he had lived for 6 years. He stared at her again with disbelief in his eyes, and began to look for at least some evidence that could refute what he had just witnessed. The more he studied her expression, the more convinced he became that the photograph he was holding in his hands was undoubtedly incriminating. He reread the entry again, noting that Bradley's pub was nearby, but not where Alice was supposed to be. She was in another city, and yet she was photographed at Bradley's when she was allegedly heading to Boston. It all didn't add up. Alice's team was preparing an important proposal, the presentation of which was scheduled for Monday afternoon. The whole team flew in that day and planned to meet the next day to put the finishing touches on the proposal, and on Sunday to have a full discussion about it. Alice, as one of the leaders, was naturally present during the preparation. Although her flight to Boston was scheduled for 4:30 p.m., it was already 5:15 p.m., and she hadn't called yet. She usually called upon arrival, but it is logical to assume that she was busy packing up the team's belongings and equipment and heading to the hotel. He considered calling, but decided to answer the message first, which turned out to be quite predictable. "Who is this? Where did you find this photo? Can we meet at Bradley's?" Getting ready for work, he decided to go to the Bradley's pub. He was determined to get an answer, no matter what. He sent Alice a text asking about her flight. "How was the flight? Call me when you have some free time." He planned to remain unnoticed and investigate the situation. As he headed to his car, the phone buzzed again. Believing it to be Alice, he checked the message and found a reply from an unknown caller. "I'll be there, but I'm sure you'll meet someone more interesting than me." He opened the map app and hurried to his car. The trip to Bradley would take half an hour, and it was already 5:40 p.m. By the time he arrives, it will be 6 p.m. He didn't quite understand the urgency of the situation, so he decided to go there right now and hoped that he would have time to meet with the one who sent the message. While he was driving, the phone rang again. This time, it was Alice, who informed him that she was now working hard with the team and would call him before going to bed. He hadn't thought about the fact that their conversation would take place later. First of all, he was intrigued by the meeting at Bradley's and how the sender of the message found out such personal details about his wife. His pulse quickened when he pulled into the parking lot at 6:12 p.m. The sender did not give his identity, so he assumed that the person who wanted to meet him there was familiar with him and would contact him himself. But what bothered him most was the mention of the presence of someone more interesting. The author of the message clearly knew something that he did not know, and it seemed to him that he was being framed, but he could not think of any other way to find out. Despite trusting his wife and their seemingly full-fledged, intimate life, he could not get rid of the feeling of anxiety caused by the photo. As he prepared to find out the truth, he realized that there was only one way to get a picture of his wife. With a sense of impending horror, he prepared for the revelation that awaited him in just a few minutes. Entering the room, he turned his gaze to the dim lighting. Unfamiliar with the pub and its layout, he took a step away from the entrance to look around. There was a spacious dining room in front of him, and a lively bar on his left. Going to the bar, he found an empty seat at the very end and got comfortable. The bartender, having finished with the well-dressed customers, approached him to take the order. After asking for a draft beer, He turned his gaze to the dining area. His gaze was attracted by a man who had just entered, who walked across the room to a table with happy faces. Looking at the poster, he finally understood the meaning of the message. Alice was sitting at the table, gracefully accepting a drink from a stylish gentleman. She looked amazing in her little black dress and pearls, radiating confidence and charm. Without thinking, he got up from his seat and walked towards her. When he had almost reached her, Alice noticed him. Her expression instantly changed from joy to fear, leaving him stunned and unsure. Tom walked over to the table without hesitation. Quickly reaching out with his left hand, he grabbed the well-dressed man by the hair and forcefully pulled him back. The man lost control of the drinks, staggered and screamed in agony. Tom continued to drag him along, freeing his left arm to deliver a right punch to the man's face. But a sudden backward movement caught the man by surprise, and he broke free from Tom's arms and fell to the ground before the fight could break out. When he approached him, he immediately recognized the man standing in front of him. "Don't bother getting up, PT," Tom demanded seriously. Pete, who had once been well-dressed, now looked disheveled, and his alcohol-soaked suit was lying at Tom's feet. He nodded his thanks, but remained motionless and silent. Looking back at Alice, Tom noticed that the whole table was silent. He recognized many faces. They were all members of Alice's team, who gathered at his house to eat and socialize. He thought that loyalty to the team might be more important than infidelity, except for one person. In front of him sat a man who knew the truth and decided to reveal it. He briefly considered identifying the man, but quickly discarded the idea, deciding that it was not worth his effort. "I'm going home. If you want to have any hope of saving our marriage, you have to come home now," he said firmly. She nodded in agreement and started to get up, but he stopped her with a raised hand. "Give me a minute to leave," he said, preparing to leave. Glancing at Betty Wilson, who was sitting next to Bob Thornton, he asked, "Betty, are you in Boston too, according to Bill? Bob, is this what Hannah believes in?" Both lowered their eyes, unable to meet his gaze or answer his question. "Is it possible that the whole team is connected to each other?" he mused. Unfortunately, he knew that at least one of them was connected. The trip home flew by in a blur. He didn't notice how he ended up at his house. He entered the house, took a beer from the refrigerator, and settled down in the living room. He knew Bill Wilson and Hannah Thornton, but the other two couples were strangers to him. Since there were 4 couples in the room, he was wondering who to turn to for advice, Bill or Hannah. Sitting in the room, he realized that he didn't want to talk, and wasn't sure what was going on, but he saw Betty and Bob exchange glances, assessing the situation. He decided to contact them, and immediately sent a note to both of them. "I just found out from Alice that the team's travel plans seem to have changed. It's better to call to find out the news." At least now they were aware, and could decide for themselves whether to delve into the situation or not. With a clear conscience, he waited in the living room for about 20 minutes, until he heard the sound of the garage door opening. Alice appeared, still in her little black dress, but without shoes or jewelry. Entering the living room, she sat down on the sofa opposite him with a serious face. He was silent, realizing the power of silence in conversation. He was prepared for the silence to last as long as it took. But it didn't last long, as Alice seemed to be on the verge of exploding. "It's not what you think," she began, but he quickly raised his hand to stop her. "You have no idea what I think about what I witnessed this evening," he interrupted. Tom replied, "I'm not interested in going into details. We are both engineers, so I think we understand that the question, why, does not always have a clear and objective answer. Often this is just a way to justify unsatisfactory results. So, I'm not going to ask myself why. Let's focus on simpler questions instead. What time is it now? How many people? How often? Do our friends know about you apart from other participants of the feast? Do my colleagues or friends call me your cuckold?" "No, Tom. It's not like that at all," Alice explained. "We are a team. and our travel plans have been disrupted. Instead of returning home and starting on the road again tomorrow, Pete suggested that we stay in the city and rest before continuing the journey. I didn't see the whole team there. Where were all the others? Tom asked. When we received the message, some of the team decided to stay at home for one more night and join us at the airport tomorrow, she admitted. But you decided to deceive me. Is there any connection between the star engineer and the head of the Prodigies program that you want to share with me? To begin with, Pete is fine, and he managed to convince the owners of Bradley's not to press charges. She replied cheerfully, making him widen his eyes in surprise at her devotion. I'm not interested in your boyfriend. If that fool hadn't stumbled, I would have punched him in the nose. Has the jury made a decision yet? He asked. Let him go and press charges. I've already been in prison. It doesn't scare me, he added confidently. I agree, this can serve as a strong proof, he said with a slight grin. Do you have feelings for him? Alice hesitated, gathering her thoughts. Her silence spoke volumes, and he filled the void with his thoughts again. It seems that the situation is moving towards a negative outcome. He's not my soulmate. Nothing special happened. I admit that I should have told you about the trip arrangements, but it didn't seem important at the time. It doesn't matter where I was in the city or in Boston. You didn't wait for my arrival, but I remained loyal to the team. We just had dinner, and then went to our rooms. Your reaction was unjustified. He only brought drinks. You made me feel completely humiliated in front of my team. When she went into full bluff mode, trying to pretend she didn't care, he reached for his phone, opened a message and handed it to her on the coffee table. It was obvious from her expression that she recognized the photo and the situation, and there was no denying it. Without hesitation, she spoke again. He picked up his phone from the table, opened the voice recording app and put it in his shirt pocket. Tom, our team, she hesitated, searching for the right words. We are a very close-knit group in many ways. We have a small, dedicated group that meets regularly. Bradley's had it all. It was on us that the entire burden of preparing for the proposal fell. You understand how much time I spent on this while preparing the project. I do not know exactly how it all started. It was around the time Pete became Prime Minister. We worked closely together, he attracted me, and before I knew it, something happened. Alice, this is unwise. Intimacy doesn't just happen. It requires conscious decisions, for example, taking off clothes. So it's been almost 6 months, he said, answering his question. That's when Pete signed the contract, right? She nodded in confirmation. The team, he began again. Without specifying, he thought about the unity between them. Are you all together? She nodded in agreement. Yes, she confirmed. Pete said it would build trust and improve the dynamics of the team. He raised an eyebrow. Did he use these arguments to get you to make love to each other in company? Her tone became defensive. This is inappropriate. It's not just that. I feel a deeper connection with Pete and the team. It's unlike anything I've experienced before, Alice said confidently. He had a feeling that this situation would not end well. Unfortunately, there will be some personnel changes in your team, Tom announced. Alice gasped in shock and begged, Please, Tom, don't tell anyone about this. It will only hurt. Let them find out for themselves. We have to accept it. Tom replied firmly, Alice, I cannot remain silent and be complicit. I like Bob and Hannah even more than Betty and Bill. He said, I informed them about the change in your travel plans. The reaction of your friends' spouses to their answers depends only on themselves. I am calm about my decision. Tom, we have the most successful team at Chimerica Inc. She practically yelled at him, saying that it was beneficial for him too. If you miss our team planning meetings on Wednesdays, it doesn't mean you missed anything. I've never ignored you. I was always available when you needed me. I was having a good time with my team and you didn't know about it. Do you remember that photo you shared with me? Do you want to hear the story behind it? Now she was bullying him. Just because you found out about it and your ego is hurt, you want to belittle the achievements of me and my team, Alice hissed. She was getting angrier and angrier. It turned him on. Tom's heart was racing as Alice passionately defended her team's actions, which further fueled his anger. On the way home from Bradley's, he briefly considered forgiving her if it was just a one-time mistake with Pete. But that thought quickly faded away. He didn't want to hear any more excuses, but Alice insisted that they wouldn't let him off the hook. "Please write to Bill and Hannah so they know that I've contacted you and that we're stuck in Atlanta right now. But we have tickets booked for tomorrow morning. This is going to be a story that Betty and Bob will use, and I need your support. Help me," she cried. "There's a lot at stake in this deal, so your claims are irrelevant. Send a message, and then we can discuss what to do next." "What should I do next?" Tom exclaimed. "There is nothing more to discuss. You're leaving immediately. And as for your team and leader, Pete, they can do whatever they want. We're done. I'm going to meet with a lawyer this week to sort everything out. It will be a simple 50-50 split. You keep your pension, I keep mine," Tom said. "Leave now. You have a reservation in the city. Take advantage of this. Go to Boston and win another impressive victory for yourself and the team," he added, urging her to go. "Tom, please send these messages," Alice said in a softer tone, addressing me. "If we lose Betty or Bob before the presentation, the company could lose millions." Alice begged Tom not to let baseless fears about casual contacts prevent them from earning tens or even hundreds of thousands in commissions and bonuses. She stressed that together they would be able to achieve tremendous success, and she would quickly achieve the status of CEO, and he would only have to continue his current job for several more years. "Don't you want this for me?" "What is it?" she asked desperately. Tom replied coldly, "Alice, just go away." When he tried to speak, a sudden blow to the back robbed him of his strength, forcing him to stay on the ground with his knee pressed into his back. "Don't hurt him," Alice warned, and added, "Too much." "So the jury hasn't decided if my nose is broken yet?" Pete teased, leaning over to the one lying on the floor in shackles. Tom understood. There must be a transmitter, and realized which side Alice was really on. "Let's see whose nose turns out to be broken," Pete grinned. "Take his damn phone and send these messages for him. We don't have time for this nonsense." With these words, someone helped Tom up from the floor, but he pretended to be offended, forcing the person standing behind him to make more effort to lift him up. This gave Tom valuable information. His opponent was a weak office worker, barely catching his breath after a struggle. Tom took a break to catch his breath after being used as a punching bag. Tom stood out from Pete and his well-groomed salesman. Instead of sitting in the office, Tom's team worked in the field with the 160th SOAR Detachment from Fort Campbell, California. Although Tom's group of engineers may not have been as polished as Pete's team, they gained respect by spending time on test missions with the crew. In the end, they were invited to work on the Pillsbury trials with cool pilots who performed tasks on aircraft modified by Tom's team specifically for them. If these people showed up at your door, it meant that they were on a mission and your time on this planet was up. Tom and his team have developed the necessary tools to enter dangerous areas and, most importantly, to safely exit them. The team was proud that their improvements played a crucial role in completing the mission and bringing all participants home. Staff Sergeant Troy Baker, who was part of Group 160 and their formidable comrades, expressed deep appreciation for the diligent efforts of Tom and his team to ensure the efficient operation of the equipment. Troy Baker was a well-known figure in his community, recognized by everyone who inhabited his kingdom. Everyone from homeless wanderers to high-ranking officers appreciated him for the dedication with which he led his men on missions around the world. His unwavering commitment to never abandon anyone earned a reputation that will live forever, which was especially evident during the mission in Colombia. Senior Sergeant Baker ordered the inexperienced lieutenant platoon commander to stay close to him, knowing that this was the young officer's first mission. Senior Sergeant Becker felt confident until a sudden ambush by Farsi rebels left their group under fire. Despite the fact that they were holding back the attackers, Baker's heart sank when he saw the wounded lieutenant on the ground. The medic confirmed that the lieutenant had lost consciousness, and Becker carefully carried him to the fire carriage. The doctor regretfully pronounced the lieutenant dead, but Baker did not lose hope that he would return home with them. The medic looked at him in disbelief, doubting his sanity. There were still more than 5 crossings through the dense forest to the landing site, from which it was unlikely that they would be able to return unscathed. Carrying a dead man seemed like a foolhardy idea. The senior sergeant seemed to understand the medic's concerns and reassured him, "I would do the same for you. Stay close, just in case." The events that followed will go down in history as legendary. When the helicopter landed at the base, they were met by a doctor. The medic informed the doctor that the lieutenant had made it. The doctor nodded, took a flashlight and pen out of his pocket and examined the lieutenant. The medic was surprised to notice that the lieutenant's pupils had narrowed under the bright light. "Should we reconsider the diagnosis, doctor?" The doctor asked the medic while the lieutenant was being carried to the operating room. He was a timeless personality and always attracted attention when he decided to perform. Despite the prevailing culture of single use and simplicity, it stood out as a rare gemstone, handmade, unique, and truly special. Tom and his team took a keen interest in him and his work. In between assignments, the senior sergeant, as a sign of appreciation, generously shared with Tom and the rest of the team his knowledge of basic but effective hand-to-hand defense techniques. Senior Sergeant Baker advised engineers to have some knowledge in case of unforeseen situations, although the biggest threat they may face is a jammed copier or cut paper. He encouraged them to stay in this business, as they may have the opportunity to travel to interesting places and meet different people. "If you happen to meet local Aborigines, you will need some knowledge," he added. Nevertheless, he hopes that cutting paper will be the most terrifying ordeal in their lives. Tom focused on regulating his breathing and relaxed against the background of his captor, giving the impression that he was under control. Remembering the fighting techniques that the senior sergeant had taught him, he realized that sometimes you can find yourself in a vulnerable position when all you have to do is endure the blows. It's not ideal, but it happens. The main thing is to remember that even when you are beaten, you still have the opportunity to fight back. The main thing is to outsmart the attacker. Tom remembered his training and relaxed in the fight with the invader, barely noticeably pushing off from him and pouring out his energy. "Give me the phone, Tom," Pete demanded, looking him up and down. "Now you know that I slept with your wife. You're just a weak, boring weakling. Follow our instructions, and maybe you can spend time with Alice when the team doesn't need her. And don't forget about the luxury items that you can buy with her premium money." Tom was silent, enjoying the fact that Pete was forcing him to do what he wanted. "Where is he, Tom?" Pete asked, noticing the outline of a phone in Tom's shirt pocket. Finally finding it, he tried to grab it with his right hand. Reacting quickly, Tom stepped back and kicked Pete in the shin, causing him to stumble and hit the toe of Gucci loafers. Bending his arms, he easily broke free from the kidnapper's grip, causing him to scream in agony as he collapsed to the ground under his weight. Pete's eyes widened at the realization of what was happening, and following the instructions of the first sergeant, he swiftly threw out his right hand and delivered a powerful blow to the center of Pete's face. The blow was so strong that the bone broke, blood gushed from his nose, and he collapsed to the floor like a felled tree. He turned around to see who had grabbed him and found that it was Bill. Writhing on the ground, he held onto his injured leg and whimpered, "I think you broke my leg." Tom squeezed his leg, causing Bill to scream in agony. "This should eliminate all doubts," Tom remarked. Turning around, he saw Pete, who was struggling to stand on the floor, holding his face with both hands. Tom went up to him and whispered in his ear, "Looks like your nose is broken, old Pete." "I don't want to join the team yet," he said, after which he delivered a powerful blow, forcing Pete to retreat. Adrenaline surged through him, and he frantically searched for Alice in the living room. Suddenly, A sharp blow to his back and neck knocked him to his knees, forcing him to prepare for another attack. Looking up, he saw that Alice was holding a cast-iron frying pan in her hands, preparing to strike. She barely grazed Tom, as she missed the target, dealing him only a light blow. Tom stood up and picked up the pan. "We can still do this, Tom," she pleaded. "Think about how much money you're going to waste. I will end all these unnecessary things. I promise that it will be just you and me like before." He rubbed the back of his head, shocked at how quickly she was changing from one Alice to another. Tom briefly thought about the shape-shifting alien from the John Carpenter movie Something, marveling at his ability to adapt and change. A smile appeared on his face at the thought. Seeing this, Alice took it as an approval of her request and started hugging. Tom carefully lowered his hand from his neck to support her. But then, hesitating for a moment, he quickly raised his right hand and hit her on the nose. It wasn't enough to knock her unconscious, but it was strong enough to break a bone. Alice let out a high-pitched scream and collapsed to the floor in agony. "It's not very pleasant, is it?" Tom asked coldly. "Why did you hit me?" she sobbed. "Because I can," Tom replied coldly. The phone in his hand continued to record the tense conversation. Not all the evidence supported his actions, but he believed he had enough evidence to defend himself. Looking around the room, he remembered the senior sergeant's advice. Choose the right moment to start action, and don't move until the right moment arrives. As soon as you start, give your best, and don't stop until everyone else freezes in place. Looking around, he noticed only Bill huddled in a corner, and Alice trying to stop the flow of blood from her nose. He was the only moving figure. "You saved another day," he thought to himself. "It looks like the boy in love and Mr. Bill won't be coming to work on Monday. That's how unlucky I was to miss out on all those millions and huge bonuses." Tom wondered what Art's reaction would be when he found out the news. He decided to call 911, but hesitated, realizing that involving the police would prevent him from questioning Alice. He came up to her as she was sitting with a dish towel over her face, knelt down next to her, and explained to her how to relieve nosebleeds. When the adrenaline rush subsided, Tom felt tired and collapsed into the chair opposite Alice. Where did his wife disappear to? Alice, whom he encountered every day, seemed completely different from the one who was sitting across from him now. He couldn't help but wonder how she had managed to deceive him for so long and so thoroughly. "Was it all worth it?" he asked. Alice met his gaze and shook her head. "Maybe you should have," she replied. "If only you'd agreed." "We were on the verge of success. After Monday, I would have been on my way to the executive chair. This failure will stop the development of events, but I can fix everything." "Do you really dream of becoming a vice president? What about our relationship? Will deception and lies remain a part of them?" "You're so naive, Tom," she replied. "Pete knew that about you. He warned me that your rigid ethics and idealistic views would hinder my success if I let them do it. He advised me to free myself from your influence and become independent if I want to achieve my goals." "Did he talk about this before he took your body?" asked Tom. "You have no idea," she replied angrily. "I tried to follow all your advice to advance my career as a female engineer. But do you know what actually works? Sometimes you just have to step aside when someone decides to self-destruct." Tom fell silent, continuing to write. "Everything that you advised me, my dear husband, did not work," she concluded bitterly. "I put a lot of effort into making sure all my assignments were completed on time and within budget. But all I got were a few half-serious compliments. It was only when Betty pulled me aside that I discovered the true secret of women's success. Believe me, using your femininity to climb the corporate ladder is not only effective, but also pleasant." "So this happened before Pete arrived?" Tom asked. "Oh, Tom, for such an intelligent person you can be quite stupid sometimes," she replied. She recalled how, a year after she started working at Cremerica, she attended a Christmas party where she gave herself to Art for the first time and never parted with him. Tom was shocked when he asked if she was having an affair with her boss, Art Vandelli. She confirmed that she did, as well as with Pete, Bill, and other team members who could advance her career. She stressed that they are still keeping Art informed of their plans. When we arrived here, he was just assembling the rest of the team. They will be informed of our absence through the legend. They will have to act without us. But I think the additional work we've done with their purchasing managers will be useful. Do I really want to listen to this? He thought about it. Why not? He decided. Additional work? Tom asked. You've always been proactive, Alice. It was so easy that I hesitate to call it an effort. She laughed. What's the old joke? The worst intimate life of my life was wonderful, she continued. During the candidates' conference, everything was so simple with men that we had to apply non-standard thinking to Brenda, a woman who occupied a prominent place in the selection committee. It's funny that I can charm a woman, but I had to bring in old Pete for extra help. And judging by the conversations about working together after the deal was signed, our selection committee seems to be on the right track. Why all this? Tom asked. If everything is unclear, why resort to such forceful tactics? It was Pete's idea, stupidly. I advised him to relax, they say. I'll come home, calm you down, and return to the flight. But he insisted on his superiority. Look at what this has brought us to. Now, instead of basking in the rays of victory, I am here with you. It can be fixed, but for me it will be a failure. You won't buy me that cheap, he said. Maybe, Alice replied, but I would have flown anyway. It looks like you won't be flying anytime soon, he chuckled. He couldn't help but admire Pete's knowledge and was sure that Alice had a transmitter. Art, are you paying attention? I'm calling the police right now. Serious crimes are definitely being committed here, and we have only scratched the surface of this fraudulent scheme. Tom asked Alice a rhetorical question. This is a federal contract, right? Is there an opportunity to make additional efforts? I know you have top-notch lawyers working for you, but maybe you should consider another option. He decided not to pursue this case. Suddenly, Alice's phone rang and a melody started playing. Art, she answered the call. Of course, I'll turn on the speakerphone. How's the volume? Art's voice came through the speaker. First of all, I want to apologize to you. Pete's actions were a mistake, and I can guarantee that the board of directors will quickly sort out the situation. Thank you for your assurances, Art. I am relieved to see that you and the board of directors have taken the allegations of assault and fraud seriously. Tom, these accusations are depressing. Although lawyers can benefit financially, no one wants to bring additional disruption to the company's work. We are ready to pay any fines and force Pete and Bill to do community service. Unfortunately, this situation may eventually lead to divorce and financial difficulties for you. Alice always thought you were smarter, but I am grateful that I decided to hire Alice, Art explained matter-of-factly. Tom Kramerica, we forced you out of a loving relationship with your wife, and when you faced this and raised the issue, you were treated shamefully. It was really shameful and shocking. Tom, Art began, instead of involving the police, we can figure something out. I asked one of my technicians to send a photo to Alice's phone. They assured me that he would disappear after she saw him. I hope this will help to establish a relationship with Alice. Alice showed Tom the photo on her phone. Looking at the inscription Bank of Grand Cayman, he noticed a large number next to it. When was this added? Tom asked. Now, Tom, you should have received an email with the account number. Tom's day wasn't going well. It was difficult for him to make decisions, and emotions could not be dismissed. Alice is a woman who is easily deceived. But emotions can't be turned into money, can they? You can't, Tom agreed, adopting Art's manner of speech. Kramerica K will cover the costs of your divorce. We all know that reconciliation is impossible. Alice will file for him. She will demand her belongings and a pension. He paused before answering. On the one hand, he could reveal the whole scandalous story and face the consequences. He had the opportunity to leave. Art had just given him 5 million reasons to do it. Krameric has medical staff, Art? Tom asked. Yes, Tom. I think we have several doctors, Art confirmed. Okay, Tom said. You should collect a few of them and send them to help your team. So we're on the same wavelength? Art asked. About Alice? Tom clarified. Exactly, Art agreed. And that's it, Tom? Goodbye, Art, Tom said, and ended the conversation. Turning off the recording app on his phone, Tom smiled at her encouragingly and put the device in his pocket. I knew you'd figure it out in your own way, Tom, she said hopefully. We can stay friends when all this is behind us. Despite her attempt at a charming smile, the damage to her nose was obvious. Her eyes were dark, and dried blood was running down her chin. Tom couldn't help but giggle, finding the sight very comical. But his amusement was short-lived, as Alice misinterpreted his smile as agreement and moved closer to kiss him. Quickly realizing his mistake, Tom reached out to stop her progress. He pushed her lightly in the back, causing her to fall onto the sofa with a loud crash. I probably hit you either too hard or not hard enough, Tom said dryly. Why would I even kiss you, Alice? She stared at him, feeling insulted. Take whatever you want, but don't come here tomorrow, Tom said and headed for the door. He stopped next to Bill. Do your legs still hurt? Yeah, they hurt like hell, you bastard, Bill complained. Maybe this will distract you, Tom said, and kicked Bill in the groin. Bill arched his back and groaned. Not knowing where to put himself, he got into the car in search of food and shelter. After snacking on a hamburger at a local cafe, he stayed at the Red Roof Inn outside the city. Exhausted by the events of the day, he quickly fell asleep despite the numerous aches and pains from the countless insults and injuries his body had been subjected to. When he woke up early in the morning and got out of bed, he felt pain in his body. While he was making coffee in the motel room, the phone rang, attracting his attention. It was a message from that very number. Quickly opening it, he read an apology for yesterday's events and an invitation to meet at the mall around noon. He replied, I will, and poured himself a cup of warm coffee from the coffee maker. When he sat down at his desk and opened his laptop, he realized that it was time to start online banking. Back in college, before meeting Alice, Tom met a wise economics professor who advised him to set up an offshore account as a safety net. Taking the advice to heart, Tom and the professor opened their own bank account in the Cayman Islands, which they called the Love You Foundation. 10 years ago, he opened an account and over time diligently transferred money to it. He felt a sense of satisfaction knowing that he had accumulated about $50,000. Now his I Love You Foundation was to receive significant financial support. Tom logged into each bank's secure website, entered his password, and quickly transferred most of Cramerica's payment to his personal account, leaving $100,000 in the original account. Refreshed, he dressed and prepared to meet the mysterious author of the message. Arriving shortly after noon, Tom entered the building and was greeted by a man about his age. The man was attractive and elegantly dressed. Tom came over and sat down in a chair, confirming the message he had received. The stranger expressed regret that everything had turned out this way, and admitted that there was no easy way to tell Tom the news. Let's start with who you are and how you are related to Alice, Tom suggested. After a long recovery, I was demobilized for medical reasons. It's been about 6 months since I joined Cramerica and 3 months since I was assigned to Pete's team. In a conversation with a friend about work, I mentioned that I work for Alice. When my friend asked for her full name, it turned out that we had a mutual acquaintance, and he asked me to look after Alice as a favor. At first it seemed that everything was going well. The team warmly welcomed me, but over time it became obvious that there was some hidden tension in the team. About 2 months later, Alice came up to me. She was very charming and convincing, but when I asked about the ring, she just smiled and said, "You don't mind, do you?" I disagreed and expressed my thoughts, which seemed to be the impetus for a change in attitude towards me. This was the beginning of a noticeable coolness in our communication. By rejecting her, I received the most undesirable assignment and met with nothing but disappointment from Pete. I contacted our mutual friend and informed him that Alice had proposed to me. He He suspected that there was more to this situation than Alice had revealed and decided that you should be aware. Pete even sent me a picture of them trying to convince me to join their team, offering a reward if I agreed. I didn't like their manipulative tactics because I'm proud of my honesty and directness. Yesterday I decided to resign and notified you about it with a message. "Who is our friend?" Tom asked. "Troy Baker." "If it wasn't for Troy," he said after a short pause, "I would have had serious problems back when I was a Green Lieutenant. I am indebted to him." Tom nodded in agreement. "What's your plan?" the stranger asked. "Art explained everything to me. I can get the police involved, get Bill, Pete, and even Alice into trouble, but with his lawyers it will be in vain. We made a deal. Someone may consider this a sale, and perhaps to some extent he is right, but they took away the only thing I can't replace. If I can't get justice legally, I'll make sure they pay in some way. It won't bring Alice back, but maybe I'll realize that she's not as irreplaceable as I thought she was. I have a journey ahead of me. Please give Troy my thanks. I'm not going back to my job." "What about you?" Tom asked. "Troy has always spoken well of Baxter Incorporated. After you leave, they may need another engineer. I think you will understand that Baxter works in a unique way. The job is difficult, but the benefits are incomparable to what Alice's team provided," Tom remarked with a smile. "I think I can adjust to these changes." The stranger stood up, prompting Tom to do the same. They exchanged brief nods and parted without further conversation. On Monday, Tom checked in for a flight to Costa Rica. Thinking that Tamarindo was the perfect place to relax, he headed towards the security service and noticed a mailbox ahead. Taking an envelope addressed to the U.S. Department of Justice in Washington from his pocket, he took out a flash drive with a recording. "Maybe they'll find it interesting," he mused. "Maybe Art's lawyers aren't as competent as he thinks they are." With that thought in mind, he dropped the envelope into the mailbox and continued on his way to the security line. 9 months later, he found himself sitting at his usual table in a cafe. Anna, charming as always, handed him a beer. "Thank you, dear," he said, raising the bottle to his lips. Sipping a beer, he noticed a letter in his hand without specifying the sender. He became curious about who had found him, and wondered what efforts it had cost to find him in a remote town on the Pacific coast of northern Costa Rica. He wasn't hiding, but it would take more resources than an ordinary person to find him. At first, he suspected that he had been discovered by people of Art. He left the mysterious envelope at his home for several days, confident that it was not an explosive device, but still wary. "Carlos!" Tom called out to the cafe owner. "Do you have knives?" "Yes, Mr. Tom," Carlos replied. Tom carefully handed over the envelope and stepped back. Watching closely as Carlos opened it, Tom couldn't help but think, "You can never be too careful." After receiving the contents, Tom thanked Carlos, took a sip of beer and began to study the envelope further. When numerous sheets of paper flew onto the table, he reached for the note that caught his attention. It read, "I thought you might be interested in this," and the phone number was given instead of the signature. In his opinion, Troy will have the means to find him. Agreeing with this, he turned over another sheet and found a newspaper article with a photo attached to it. The picture showed Pete, Bella, Alice, and Betty being led out of the Cremerica building in handcuffs. The headline of the article read, "4 people are accused of multi-million-dollar procurement fraud." A smile appeared on his face. Perhaps Art's legal team is not as strong as he thought to himself. It was a common practice for him as he struggled with his limited Spanish and the lack of English-speaking people around. He liked to hear English, even if it was just his own inner monologue. "Anna, can I have another beer, please?" "What is it?" he asked, handing her his empty bottle. "Of course, Mr. Tom," Anna replied, handing him a beer. He took a sip, looking at the vast expanses of the Pacific Ocean, the waters of which were a deep blue shade. Every person you meet in life has something unique. Some are lucky to have natural talents such as wealth. athleticism, intelligence, or beauty. These abilities give them an advantage in life. For those who are not so lucky, their difficulties serve as a lesson to others about the difficulties of life. My friend Ralph has a set of special talents that set him apart from ordinary people. His specialty is chaos and disorder. In fact, he is the real version of Wreck-It Ralph. If there is a way to turn something innocent and pleasant into a complete disaster, Ralph most likely carried it out, and he has physical evidence of it. He looks like a wrecking ball in human form, but not in the eccentric manner of Miley Cyrus, but in one that makes you wonder how he managed to avoid imprisonment. He was quickly dubbed Ralph the Destroyer, and was often called the Human Destroyer for his tendency to cause chaos by pushing the boundaries of what is allowed. Ralph was able to completely destroy things and always found a way to do it. Although he could be a valuable ally if only you stayed by his side, his destructive tendencies were always a concern. 3 years after graduating from college, I married Jenna Phoenix. She was undeniably attractive and had a great physique, which allowed me to ignore her questionable behavior. When I married her, I knew she wasn't the most affectionate and caring person, but she made up for it with two of the most important things for a person like me. She had the looks of a movie star, and more importantly, she was skilled in bed. It is known that a man can ignore a woman's bad attitude if she satisfies him physically. Men often prefer physical desires over emotional connection. We tend to think with physical desires until we learn from our mistakes. The heart leads to romance, the head leads to a successful marriage, and physical desires often lead to legal costs. Jenna met with Ralph only once during his short visit home. She met some of my other friends and got along well with them. I tried to warn her about Ralph, but I could see that she didn't fully understand the situation. She smiled and laughed when he talked about his antics, unaware that they were based on real events with minimal exaggeration. Stories about absurdities were funny when they happened to others, but they took on a different tone when you were involved in them. It stopped being funny when you found yourself tied up with a kid who was being interrogated by the police for trying to set up mousetraps at Chuck E. Cheese, while declaring your intention to destroy a giant rat once and for all. You can't just come in and run a Walmart checkout if you don't work there. Although most of his antics were stupid and harmless, some went beyond the bounds of what was allowed. Fortunately, our city, like many others, often let him off the hook. It's amazing what you're capable of when half your cousins are cops. When his uncle was sheriff and his godmother, who turned out to be Ralph's aunt, was a judge, he had some protection. But despite this, they still warned him that his pranks were getting out of control. After he repeatedly crossed the line, Annie Judge gave him an ultimatum: join the army or spend a year in county jail. Annie was furious when she caught him fishing in the reservoir, disrupting the resupply for the fishing derby, an event she and Uncle Sheriff enjoyed together every year. Spoiling relationships with others was one thing, but preventing Annie from spending time with her loved one was unacceptable. Ralph decided to serve in the army, which led to his absence from the city and limited communication with me. The interaction between Ralph and Jenna was limited. We communicated by email and video chats, and I sent him parcels with things when he was in another place. Despite his questionable behavior, Ralph managed to maintain good grades at school. Due to family ties that prevented him from committing misconduct, he joined the service as an explosive device disposal technician. The fact that a person with possible mental disabilities was engaged in the disposal of explosives caused concern. Ralph managed to hide his troubled past during basic training. The group of people at the training event consisted of random people, and the sergeants were busy conducting the necessary training activities with less competent members of the platoon. One man, Ralph, managed to complete half of the aid course before he was caught at an explosive test site, creating an adult toy on the day of the sergeant major's visit. He might have gone unnoticed if he had not boasted that he had made him in his own image, which caused the disapproving glances of the instructors and the sergeant major. It was then that Ralph's instructors realized that his character was not suitable for sappers, but they believed that he would fit better into the ranks of combat engineers. Unlike sappers, who require maturity and seriousness when working with bombs, combat engineers have a combination of intelligence and recklessness, which makes Ralph more suitable for this role. Ralph found out about his true vocation in the Army when he confidently told the AIT instructors about the incident that caused him to be expelled from the sapper school. The next day, when he was assigned to add more explosives to his concrete charges at the landfill, Ralph felt needed. The sergeant's instruction to blow up everything, because it was too troublesome to return, only strengthened Ralph's belief that he had found his place in the Army. He often emailed me, telling me how much he enjoyed his new role. His shameful behavior led to 2 sentences under Article 15 for stupid antics, but they were not so serious as to cause his dismissal from the Army. Despite the fact that he had a lot of fun while serving in the Army, he eventually decided to return home after completing 4 years of service. And while he was defending the freedom of our country, I tied the knot with Jenna, my latest crush. Our marriage began in a normal setting, because before starting a family, we set a goal to establish ourselves in our careers. We decided that it would be easier to explore the world without the additional responsibilities of caring for a child and packing diapers during the trip. Jenna and I were fine, but then everything suddenly changed. Her behavior began to change imperceptibly, becoming more noticeable over time. I tried to draw attention to the problems I saw in our relationship, but she brushed them off, insisting that everything was fine. This went on for several weeks, until one day I came home and found an engagement ring she had left on the kitchen table. Despite my attempts to talk, she resorted to the banal excuse, "It's not about you, it's about me." I had problems in my personal life, filled with excuses and lies, most likely from my wife. The divorce papers were handed to me during Ralph's homecoming party. The usual irreconcilable differences with a seemingly fair division were cited as the reason. I left the papers on the table and went to the party to greet a returning friend. My marriage broke up, and I couldn't figure out why. I missed Ralph's presence, and his return meant more to me than I was willing to admit. My marriage broke up and I couldn't pinpoint the exact reason. I suspected foul play on the part of my wife, but I tried to put these thoughts aside for the evening. When Ralph came to the party, I hugged him, and his reaction was immediate. He asked what happened, but I waved him off, saying that we were gathered to celebrate his return. I handed him a drink and expressed my happiness at his return. That evening we had a few drinks, and for a moment everything fell into place. A few people drank all the alcohol in the bar, and we had to go to the liquor store for more. We were eventually kicked out, and Ralph and I went to a late-night diner to eat greasy food. When the noise of the party had died down in the quiet atmosphere of the diner, Ralph asked me what had happened. I confessed that everything was fine until everything went wrong and she left. I received the divorce papers just a few hours before the party, and still didn't understand what went wrong. As always, he wasted no time getting down to business. "So who is she sleeping with?" I shrugged my shoulders. "I have no idea." Ralph didn't hesitate. "Okay, here's the plan. Let's ruin her life, and then we'll find out who he is and destroy it too." I couldn't help but smile. Everything seemed too simple. "Is it really that simple?" Ralph nodded confidently. "She's out of the game. There's no point in dwelling on her like she's a little piece of trash. It's time to move on." He was right. There was no turning back. We finished our meal and agreed on a trip to my house. "I'm on vacation for the next month. I'll help with that. You take care of the lawyer and I'll take care of the rest." I chuckled. "What exactly are you going to do?" Ralph just grinned. "Don't worry about it. I'll handle it." We returned to my house and went to bed. When I woke up the next day around 11 a.m., I heard voices on the street, as if people were talking in the entrance. Looking out the window, I noticed that all my things that were in the house the night before are now scattered around the driveway, and people are sorting them out. I went over to Ralph, took a sip of coffee, and asked him what he was doing. A hand-drawn sign with the inscription, "Cheating Wife for Sale." "What are you doing, Ralph?" He answered confidently. "What does it look like? I'm making you money." I awkwardly thanked him for his efforts. "How can you tell what belongs to Jenna and what belongs to me?" I asked. "It's simple," Ralph replied. "If it's girly stuff, it's probably hers. And if it looks stylish, then it's definitely not yours, because you have terrible taste, especially when it comes to women." I nodded in agreement, acknowledging that he was right. Despite feeling guilty for selling some of Jenna's treasured family trinkets, I didn't stop Ralph when he handed me some printed papers. "She's a really dumb thing," he muttered to himself. She probably should have logged out of Gmail on her home computer before leaving, but fortunately she didn't. She dated a guy named Tim from work and exchanged intimate photos with him. Perhaps I should have been more careful when marrying someone with a butterfly above her buttock. After reading the evidence he provided, I was shocked at how easily he revealed her infidelity. I sighed and muttered, "I didn't know." Of course, I didn't know. I trusted her. But it's time to accept the truth and move forward. I shrugged casually and haggled with the woman about the price of Jenna's wedding dress. The woman was delighted when I made a counteroffer of $20, which was significantly lower than her original price of $500. It might have been a little rash to make such a low offer, but I couldn't wait to tell her later that the dress had been sold for that amount as a gesture of satisfaction. While the deal was in progress, I quickly wrote to a friend who worked as a lawyer in a family practice and asked him to help me review and sign some documents related to the sale. He responded quickly and invited me to his office to help with the process. When I returned home in the middle of the day, I found that almost everything had disappeared. The house seemed almost empty, with only the most basic necessities for survival left in it. Ralph was just packing a box labeled Jenna's stuff when I entered the room. He greeted me with a smile and asked me how my meeting with the lawyer went. I assured him that everything went smoothly and the agreement was fair, so I signed it. I doubted that the court could have offered a better outcome. Ralph informed me that the sale had ended just an hour ago and handed me an envelope with Jenna's share, which amounted to $245. He offered to take her things to her parents' house so she couldn't come back, and I agreed. After that, we planned to have a snack. I couldn't help but think that Ralph might not have made the best deal for Jenna, especially considering the cost of the wedding dress alone. I felt relieved that I had finally taken the box out of the house and could start over with a clean slate. When I reached for it, Ralph beat me to it, insisting that he carry it himself and inviting me to drive, since I knew the way to Jenna's parents' house. Upon arrival, Jenna's father Simon met us at the door and let us inside when we explained our mission. Simon tried to apologize for Jenna's behavior, but I interrupted him. "Did you know she was cheating on me?" I demanded, forcing Simon to confirm it with a guilty nod. "Thanks for that," I replied. "You've raised a great daughter, Simon." Ralph put the box on the table, forcing me to take a double look at its contents. I was shocked to see adult toys items that I was sure hadn't been in my house before. There was also a red fire extinguisher in the box. Trying not to laugh, I calmly informed my future ex-father-in-law that I had signed the papers and that my lawyer would contact her lawyer. I tried my best to keep my composure as we left the store. We burst out laughing. I pretended to be disgusting when my friend tried to apologize. As soon as we were in my truck, I was filled with fun. "How massive is this thing, and what else did you drag in there?" I asked, unable to contain my amusement. We laughed merrily while he talked about his adventures over the past few years during dinner. I had already heard some of these jokes from Ralph in previous conversations, but hearing them directly from him made them doubly funnier. Ralph always lifted my spirits, and when he was around, it was almost impossible to be in a bad mood. Jenna made so much turmoil in my life before she left, but her absence made it easier for me to move forward. Jenna and I were one of the few who still had a home phone, as it was cheaper to connect it to an internet provider. When I got home, I listened to a furious message from Jenna on my answering machine. She screamed indistinctly for 2 minutes in a row about mobile phones, toys, family gossip, and inappropriate comments. Even though I didn't receive any messages from Jenna on my phone, I realized that her contacts were blocked. I looked at Ralph, who had a mischievous smile on his face. "You were busy today," I said. Surprisingly, I understood most of Jenna's rant, except for the part about pregnancy. Ralph took 2 cans of beer out of the fridge and handed one to me. While he was taking a sip, I quickly grabbed a marker and hurriedly drew a few lines on the pregnancy test. It was a risky move, as Jenna or her mother would easily notice the fake, but I was counting on her father not to notice the difference. The chance was great, but in the end, it paid off. Ralph felt at home in the guest room, and we quickly became roommates while he entered civilian life and accepted his newfound bachelor status. After the divorce, Jenna no longer felt the need to keep her new boyfriend a secret. Tim, a work colleague whom I had only briefly met at office events, was now openly dating Jenna. A few days later, I found the flyer while drinking coffee in the city center and realized that it was the work of Ralph. Upon returning home, I gave him the leaflet, and he looked at it with a smile and pretended that he did not understand what I was talking about. Jenna and he were caught in a compromising position. All the explicit details were hidden, but still obvious. To make matters worse, the leaflet mentioned that they were not married at the time, which further aggravated the scandal. The flyers were distributed mainly in the office, but then they spread further. When I asked how many of them were distributed, Ralph calmly replied, "Several thousand." When asked how he managed to do all this, Ralph said that he paid a group of teenagers $20 each to stick them everywhere. Even if some of them were thrown away, they still continued to cause trouble. And that's exactly the meaning of a teenager's life, right? As soon as I pressed the play button on my home phone's answering machine, Jen's angry voice rang out in the room, accusing me of recklessness. This time I hardly paid attention to her tirade, as I became indifferent to her dramas. But when she mentioned the homeless man with the poster, I turned to Ralph for clarification. He handed me a beer and showed me a video on his phone in which a homeless man was twirling a sign with the inscription, "A traitorous woman lives here." Ralph took a sip of beer and explained that this man, Juan, was not really homeless, but his friend, whom he met at VFW, and from whom his wife left while he was serving in Afghanistan. Juan was happy to shame the woman who cheated on him, even if she wasn't his ex. I took a sip of beer while we watched a video of Juan enthusiastically twirling a sign. Meanwhile, the divorce process between Juan and his wife was still ongoing. According to my lawyer, I did not understand at all what Jenna was accusing me of, and if she continues to defame me, we will change the grounds for divorce to adultery. I had considered changing the cause to irreconcilable differences before, but I just wanted to get it over with as soon as possible, and didn't think I would get better terms. But the threat worked, and Jenna backed off. A few days later, she sent another frantic message filled with obscene words and references to the characters of Game of Thrones. Trying to decipher what I supposedly did based on her dramatic attacks became quite funny. This time, everything was clear from the beginning. Ralph, as always, handed me a beer and pressed the video play button. Juan told his girlfriend Maria about the situation, and Maria, still angry at her ex-husband who abandoned her during pregnancy, wanted to help as therapy. The video was wonderful. Maria's enthusiastic voice echoed through the room as she rang the bell. Juan, dressed in the clothes of a homeless man, resembled Ricardo Montalban playing the tall sparrow, and watched the scene without condemnation. Tim looked like he'd rather be somewhere else. I took a sip, curious about where this awkward incident happened. Ralph admitted with a grin that it happened at the Red Lobster. After taking another sip, I joked if anyone was left naked. Ralph slammed his hand on the table, swearing that he had forgotten something. We decided to catch up by going to a strip club. "You're thinking flawlessly," I told him, grabbing the keys, and we went to the local gentlemen's club to help Ralph atone for his undressing incident. While we were watching the performance of an exotic dancer, I asked when her show would end. My friend replied, "Once the divorce is finalized, then I will move on. In the meantime, forget about her." The dancer, whose name was Ebony, smiled at Ralph when we tipped her. Despite claims that there are no affairs in the champagne room, Ralph claimed otherwise. This claim was further reinforced when Ralph and Ebony were caught in a compromising situation, as a result of which Ralph was banned from the club by imposing bouncers for a month. As we were leaving the club, Ralph made a sincere confession, saying that he might have fallen in love. I was puzzled by how he managed to get into Ebony's car, and his rambling about the smell of mothballs only made my confusion worse. Having failed to figure it out, I gave up trying. Ralph mentioned with a mischievous smile that red bell pepper can get a smell similar to naphthalene if left for a long time, referring to the internet as a source of information. I agreed with him, finished my beer, and noted that he didn't seem to mind Tim. I must admit I can't help but notice a pattern. It turns out that he is the most popular person in various dating apps. In just a month, he used 3 mobile phones. But love knows no boundaries. As I handed him another beer, I noticed that everyone deserves to find the love they are looking for, even among the wheat fields. A week later, Ralph's uncle, who also turned out to be the sheriff, visited the house. I've always had a good relationship with his family, so I welcomed him into the house and treated him to a beer. After taking the first sip, the sheriff asked, "Where is my nephew today?" I replied, "He left for Mexico last Friday with his new girlfriend." The sheriff looked intrigued. "So she's not from around here?" I confirmed, "No, he hasn't been here for a few days." At that moment, the phone rang. The sheriff asked, "You're not going to answer?" I replied, "No, I'm just saving evidence of my ex's instability." After taking another sip, he began to play a message filled with rants about working on the lawn and a cheating wife. The sheriff was joking. "It looks like your wife has problems with the lawn at work." I chuckled. They accused Ralph, but he has a solid alibi. The sheriff suggested calling Ralph and checking his location. I dialed Ralph's number, and a woman answered me. "Hello, Ralph is busy right now, can I help you?" The sheriff and I exchanged knowing glances, listening to the suggestive sounds in the background. It was immediately clear what Ralph was up to. The sheriff remained calm. "Where is Ralph at the moment, dear?" She stammered, "He's here with me." I couldn't contain my reaction and accidentally spat out the beer. The sheriff couldn't hold back his laughter either, asking, "Are you two in Mexico or are you still in town?" Ralph took the phone away from her, but we could still hear intimate sounds in the background. "We're in Cancun, Uncle Sly. Enjoying the sights," he replied. "I will send you my flight details soon. I'm sure it was just a bunch of teenagers making a mess. I have to go, I'm very busy. Goodbye." The sheriff returned my phone to me, finished his beer and left, laughing and muttering something to himself. The divorce was finalized, and I was finally free. This meant the end of Ralph's games, much to Jenna's relief. It was a beautiful Sunday, and we were getting ready to watch the first game after lunch. Sitting down at the table, I handed Ralph a beer and thanked him for his help. He replied, "Not quite yet. I'm alone. We have to end on a high note." I encouraged him to perform better than before, but his mischievous grin made me nervous. Looking at his watch, he promised that everything would be amazing, just like in the movies. At that moment, the phone rang. Some screams were heard. Church, grandma, dwarf, Elvis, threesome, and the whole community. I looked at Ralph, asking what he had done. He just grinned and asked if I wanted to watch it by opening the video on my iPad. It was a video from the church where Jenna and I got married, and I recognized her immediately. The priest was giving a sermon when suddenly a man came forward. The priest was momentarily confused when the man approached the altar and confessed his sins. He confessed that he had committed sinful acts with a woman named Jenna from the community and expressed a desire to repent of his unholy deeds. While I was trying to make sense of the situation, a 4-foot-tall dwarf dressed as Elvis told me that he had an affair with my ex-wife. The strange scene continued to unfold, and I was speechless as Elvis walked towards Jenna. He takes her hand and abruptly begins to remember how Jenna used adult toys with him. He knew it was wrong, because she was still married, but he couldn't deny the pleasure he felt when he and Tim got the upper hand. Although he didn't like dressing up in Tinkerbell for Tim, he was willing to do anything for Jenna's affection. Now that her divorce was finalized, he felt that they could finally be together. Getting down on one knee, he proposed to her, wanting to start a new chapter in their relationship. The ring seemed massive in his small hands. "Be my full-length princess, Jenna. I love you," he said. Jenna was stunned. Her grandmother fainted. Her father got up and threw up. Tim rushed to the door and her mother began to cry. It was total chaos. I was speechless, not knowing what to say, and looked at him. He just leaned back and smiled. A minute later, the front door opened and someone entered the kitchen, opening the refrigerator. Shortly after, a 4-foot-tall Elvis impersonator appeared on the couch next to me, watching the game. When he opened the beer, he winked at me and said, "Glory to the king, baby." Unlike him, my revenge was more subtle. I've been dating Jen's ex-best friend, Kara, for the last year. Jen managed to keep it a secret from her friends. Kara's ex-husband was caught cheating with an older woman in a bar a few years ago. Jenna knew perfectly well that she couldn't tell Kara about her secret. There was a certain satisfaction in watching your ex cry when your current girlfriend said she couldn't hang out with her because she was sleeping at her boyfriend's. Kara would be even more upset if she found out that Ebony, Kara's new best friend, was planning to be there with her boyfriend, Ralph. Ebony invited Kara to work as a fitness instructor, and I praised Ebony's teaching skills at every opportunity, especially after Kara demonstrated what she had learned in class that day. Tonight, Ralph plans to ask Ebony for her hand when they get back to her house. At the same time, I will propose to Kara. I intend to personally deliver Jenna's wedding invitation, and Ralph knows just the right dwarf to help complete this special assignment. See you soon.